They will enter this first trigger volume that might spawn enemies or cause a ship to explode in the distance. There's a few side trigger volumes where we have some enemies in those areas, and when the player enters this trigger volume, those enemies actually get afraid of the player, and they'll run away. This is how we would make a trigger volume. And let's say, for example, we want some enemies to spawn in this little basin down there. You would place a trigger volume, you can control the scale of it, and you would want to create a nice, clean line that the player can't get around. You know the player's close to the ground, so they can't actually see over the hill, but you wouldn't want them to be able to stand here because they could actually see the enemy spawn, and they'd spawn out of nowhere. So you're always just looking for a line so that the player can't actually see what's happening. The player crosses a bend, they hit the new trigger volume, and that fight ensues.
If mission designers are like storytellers, I give them words like warthog and explosion to tell different stories.
The basic design for a weapon needs to be fun to shoot and fun to be shot at. The shotgun is all about close range, surprising people. Sniper rifle is long range. Spartan laser is about taking down vehicles.
My favorite weapon is the battle rifle.
I'm quite partial to the sticky grenade.
And that 3-shot burst just feels really powerful.
We create situations in which a weapon is going to be the best thing around. But we also do the reverse, where we give you a shotgun, and then the next encounter is going to be all long range, and then all of a sudden you have to find a different solution to the problem.
So for multiplayer, it's really sort of trying to get the weapons placed in the right locations on the map.
Stay in your VIP. How do I get up there?
In multiplayer, the players are going to do something that you don't expect. So there's a big difference in how you can react with weapons.
You're looking at how you can sort of balance a power weapon on one side of a map versus a different side of a map.
This is actually really, really hard to balance out and make fun every time because the placement is random and so is the weaponry.
On Valhalla, the Spartan laser is placed right in the center of the map so that each team has an equal chance at getting out to the center where you're taking a lot of risk. And once you've got it, then you're really powerful. It's kind of a gamble, but the payoff is pretty big if you're successful.
It was really getting hard to add new weapons because balancing 40 weapons, you're going to feel like you have a weapon that is a clone of another. So the direction that we took is we added a new set of really, really powerful weapons that you don't really keep for a long time.
We've got an entirely new kind of weapon, the turret weapon, where you walk up to a turret and you yank it off its tripod and then you're walking around and you're doing third person.
We just limited the amount of ammunition in the turrets because they're really too powerful.
As new events happen throughout the level, your objectives are often changing, like when the Scarab comes in, for example. You know, it's pretty clear that you've now got a new barrier to being able to complete your overall objective of the mission. In Halo 3, the Scarab is super dangerous. You've got to be smart about how you approach fighting it.
The Scarab was in Halo 2, but it was very scripted.
The way it was actually implemented in the game was boring as hell.
The design was horrible. Like it looked like a basket, like a handle. I'm going shopping. It's horrible.
When you're fighting the Scarab in Halo 2, you had to kill the 2 guys that were driving it, and then you died in a cutscene. That was pretty cool, but it wasn't part of the sandbox. One of the first things we were looking at for Halo 3 was, let's give it an AI, let's let it move about the environment completely freely, let's make it part of the sandbox.
So we want to make it as interactive as possible.
So not only is this thing trying to kill you and all of your allies, but it's almost its own encounter space. It's up to you to figure out exactly what you're going to do to take out that Scarab. If you don't figure it out, well, you're probably going to die.
The end of Halo 3 is the end of the entire trilogy, and we wanted to do something really awesome for the end.
Explosions!
Yes.
Far.
You took me half an hour.
Oh, God, no, you're not going to make it.
You want me to drive?
No, I want you to fix it so that I won't die when I go full speed. What I was playing was the end in a very unpolished, very rough, very frustrating state.
You've got to build it, you got to play it, you got to say, it's not good, let's try it again.
Every step of the way, you know, I'm going, is this fun? Is it exciting?
As we get toward the end of the project, we're just making smaller changes, tweaking how much damage something does.
We have to make sure that the doorways are the right size.
How's the cover playing out?
We're the ones that have to wire it all up and make it work and make it fun.
Just a little more sped up, I think.
And ultimately, you might have an encounter that plays great.
Jump off there. Jump off here. You should be able to land.
Oh, so close to making that jump. That's awesome.
Sometimes you stumble on it, sometimes you plan for it, but the most important thing is when you recognize it, that you covet it and that you keep it.
The shipping game is always an approximation of the perfect vision. I like not having to be the one who decides when I have to stop, because I would never stop if I had any choice. And then the game would slip and then we'd all get fired. And even then I wouldn't want to stop.
Every piece of artwork that you see in the game is built by a community of artists.
The dirt on the tires gets there because someone has to put it there. The scratch on the inner side of the fender because a rock might have jumped up and hit it.
Everything that moves in our game, the wheel on the Warthog rotating, the little antenna bouncing up and down like that, the shotgun spitting out a cartridge.
The walls and the light fixtures.
Smoke trails, dust effects, lightning, they flesh out the world, make it feel a lot more real.
The guys that have the biggest burden are the environment artists. They have to build, essentially, the entire world.
One of the areas we were working on was a warehouse. When it was handed to me, it was a big box. It was a void. We worked to essentially design the overall look.
You have to create a world that a player just wants to get lost in.
These sweeping alien vistas, these giant foreigner spires and green rolling hills and blue skies.
It's a stylized realism.
What's important to this space? There's my exit, there are my places to get cover. That gives us a three-dimensional picture and we start building it.
We'll get the basic forms in, then we'll do a layer basic lighting, then we'll do a layer basic texturing.
The biggest challenge in front of us was how were we going to convert these assets from Halo 2 into this next-gen HD content.
I don't think there are any developers who are happy that it's a high-def world now. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just a pain in the ass for all of us.
You have to scale up. We need to have 4 times the size of textures, 4 times as much content, just to create the same experience that we had with Halo 1 and Halo 2.
It's a brand new console. What we found was more powerful engine, a lot more work for one artist.
Xbox 360, there's screaming for more detail, so we've got to provide it.
This is one of the things that's going to set apart Halo 3 from Halo 2, just the sheer number of tufts of weeds and grass to sort of help them blend into the ground and the terrain. I know that if there's one out of place, like when the game ships, every time I run by that in multiplayer, I'll see that one blade of grass and I'll be very upset, so I tend to get a little obsessive about it.
Art and design is like almost the exact opposite of each other. I'm always trying to add something that he wants to get rid of, or he's trying to add something that I want to get rid of.
First-person shooters are given a lot of bad publicity because this room's filled with crates.
We'll give him a beautiful environment, perfectly composed, lit, and then he goes, I'm just gonna put a few crates. Don't worry, just a few. Then you got purple crates, and you got the green crates. And then there's, oh, don't worry. These crates are only here temporarily. You're gonna turn them into something really cool. And then you find out, so long as it stays exactly the same proportions as a crate.
Our combat rests heavily in the fact that we have a fair amount of cover.
The designer will grab the ugliest crate in the world and go, hey, this is a great place to fight around. And then the artist will come up and go, that's a box, like it's pretty ugly. Here's something cool.
The designer will come in and be like, this is gorgeous, but this is an absolutely awful space to fight bad guys in.
Tell them to drop everything and recraft this.
This space needs to be fun before it's pretty.
Art really likes rolling, beautiful hills and completely open environments, and we're like, what are you gonna do in there? We need to throw crates
Drive the
in.
Warthog smoothly. That's
Yeah,
what we
but
do.
for infantry encounters.
Oh, my Warthog fell over.
One of the things Halo is really known for is the vehicles. Our vehicles really eat into the dirt and bank into turns and have a lot of mass.
Jamie comes to me with an idea for a brute vehicle that was a little bit like a ride-along lawnmower.
It's called the chopper because it will literally chop you up.
Before starting work on the brute chopper, we discussed the brute.
Look, it has soiled itself.
The brutes are taking a lot more precedence in this game. To give the brutes more depth, they need to have a history too. And one of the ways to show a history is vehicles that they created.
So I look at the brutes, I try to imagine what their home world is like. Maybe they're from a place where they hammer ore and there's lava and magnetism. And I say, okay, well, how do I build a magnetized metallic lawnmower that's fun to drive and shoot people with? I'm going to take Travis's yellow and stick it on the chopper because I think it looks cooler with the tone of the metal. But